I'm Gab, he's Jules, blue skies over West London. Jules, not going to lie about this show. This is that time, the March break, where basically nothing has happened since the last match day until the international start, most of them starting this evening. We did have the Women's Champions League. We'll be getting to that.
Absolutely.
This is where we hope to bring you stuff which we think is interesting, which we think is different, which we think is relevant. Look, was I hoping that, I don't know, Ange Postecoglou or somebody will get sacked and we just talk about that?
I know you were.
Or not because it's Ange, or Sergio Conceição or somebody.
Yeah.
So we could have that at the top? No. So we are grasping for the first segment, but bear with us. I am still expectorating Marinaki style, but I will try to avoid spitting on the floor, as I customarily do in my own home, like Mr. Marinakis. We're going to talk Thomas Tuchel at the top. And the reason...
that's the most interesting story, right? Before games are being played about this international break.
It is interesting. It is interesting because, well, obviously we covered it when he was appointed. There's a simple fact that there's the element that they appointed, not just a foreigner, but a German. Yeah. And if you live in England, constantly 2 world wars, 1 World Cup, it's like they have this obsession with Germany.
Yeah.
Now, it's fair to say most European countries see Germany as their big footballing rival. I know we do in Italy. But of course, that's because we've won 4 World Cups, which of course England has not. England, I believe, have won 1 more than Albania, who they play on Friday night.
That's right.
So there's that element. Tuchel's kind of been on his best behavior. He's been criticized by some for kind of living in Germany, commuting back and forth, not watching as many games as others would like him to watch. So tell us about when he opened things up for his first squad. He was kind of all touchy-feely, lovely.
Yeah, but he's a very charming guy anyway. We saw that when he was at Chelsea before in this country, but even when he was in France or in Germany before that. So he was always going to say the right things, which I think he did in his press conference. One thing that people seem to love is about the national anthem, because he said like he will only start singing it when he earned the right of singing it, which doesn't make any sense.
Which is never.
He will never sing
Nor
it. We can say that to. We're pretty sure that he would never sing it, which is fine. You know, Thierry Henry didn't sing the Belgium anthem when he was the assistant coach to Roberto Martinez, who himself didn't sing the national anthem because he was not Belgian. So there's nothing wrong about not singing the anthem of a country that is not yours. It'd probably be weird if it was the other way around. So,
and by the way, this is one of the few places in the world where they would actually make a big deal.
Absolutely.
It's just so stupid.
Absolutely. But I feel that he went to watch enough games, certainly since January the 1st when he officially took over. It was an interesting squad that he named, to say the least, with Dan Burn, for example, who's 32, who probably thought this day would never come, but yet he could potentially be an England international.
Right. What's the logic there? Dan Burn can do a job for me in the World Cup. He's not going to be, so and since my contract is until then, right, I'm just going to focus on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Dan Burn will start anyway, so he'll be a backup to whoever starts, I guess. I'm not sure. I think there was a few injuries. It would have been interesting to see if Harry Maguire, for example, would have been called up by Thomas Tuchel or not, and if Burn would have made the squad like Kyle Walker, if Alexander-Arnold had been fit, which is not the case. So Burn might be there this month, but might not be there in June when Tuchel has his second international break to navigate. But Jordan Henderson coming back is probably the biggest talking point, because really he doesn't deserve to be there.
I knew you were going to go there. You're going
to
diss the serial winner. And I'm sorry, if you see me craning, it's because somebody put something in front of my clock, so I can't see how much time I've left in this segment. But I do think, look, the overall message, though, Jules, is this is a short-term appointment. England have a team to win now. It's pretty obvious. They reached 2 European finals, came close, went deep into the World Cup in between. From that perspective, there's no issue in appointing the best possible coach that you can get, regardless if he's German. Yeah,
absolutely. He's the guy that can win you the World Cup, can take this team further up and forward more than Southgate did. He's a better tactician. He's, I think, even better some part of my management. So I think it's a very, very smart appointment if Tuchel can adapt to international football, which is obviously very different to club football.
It's one of the interesting points you made there is the man management side. Like I said, he was all touchy-feely. That is something, that media relations, something Southgate excelled at.
Yeah.
Southgate was a very good person. possibly a better person than Thomas Tuchel, I would imagine, just because it's St. Gareth, right? Jules, as I mentioned, he's replacing somebody in Gareth Southgate who literally did not put a foot wrong at all off the pitch in relationships with fans, with players, with the media.
Yeah.
Navigated also some pretty difficult issues. And I think, whatever else we think of Southgate overall, I've said this a million times, I think as a person and the way he behaved, there's nothing negative you can say about him, which has not been the case about previous England managers, or indeed this England manager, because he's human. Thomas Tuchel is human. He doesn't always look human. He looks like a giant spider sometimes, or like a praying mantis, but he's human, right? What he is, though, he's a very good, he's very much an innovator. When he started out, he called himself the rule breaker and everything. Yeah. He's always open to new ideas. Now, the thing about football is a lot of things have been invented already. And I love it because there are PR people and comms people at the FA whose job it is to sell us basically old ideas as new ideas. So they made such a big deal about how for his first training camp, I guess it was at some Hilton hotel somewhere.
No, St. George's Park. They've got like a HQ.
It's a Hilton.
Well, yeah, inside
whatever.
Yeah, inside
whatever it is, right? Inside the hotel, they rejiggered the whole hotel, supposedly to mimic what a hotel feels like, or what a base camp feels like during a major tournament. And they made such a big deal about, oh, here's a chill out zone. Here's a zone where players can casually mingle while having juice. And so they moved all the furniture around. And then also they made a big deal out of the fact that he really emphasizes physical contact between players. He mentions they got this idea from the NBA about the number of times that the players high five each other. We saw them do a drill with is it Anthony Barry's assistant or some other dude? Where they're doing some form of rondo, keepy uppy type thing, but they're all holding hands while doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I were in my Dave Brailsford hat, I would say these are all marginal gains, apart from the fact that they could be spreading disease unless they use their hand sanitizer before. But whatever. In reality, the goal is a noble one. Does this make much difference, or?
I don't know if it makes any difference, but it's just different. So it's good. Nicolas Maya, who's this like kind of head of performance, if you want, or director of performance that he had with him in Paris and in Munich. A lot of things like that. I think it's important for team bonding, things like that, especially when you've just arrived. It's new. Tuchel said to them, listen, we will have 60 days together before the World Cup, 24 training sessions. So we have to make the most of them because there are not that many. And that's why we said at the end of the first segment, the TV segment on the show, is like Tuchel will also have, and his team will also have to adapt to international football, which is very different. You don't see the players every day, and they might be okay, they might not. Usually it's not that difficult. We see with Nagelsmann, Spalletti, Deschamps. There's a lot of them who went from club level to international level and didn't do too bad, to be fair. So it should be fine. But I like the fact that they just try to change things, do things a little bit differently in the environment, on the training page, and see, I guess, where that leads them.
The 24 training sessions is really, really big. And I cannot emphasize this enough. And I'm glad Tuchel said it, and he's right. It is a very, very different job. 24 training sessions is nothing. When you assume that, of your projected starters, it's entirely likely that, probably a bunch of them will miss one or more international breaks, so that number of training sessions goes down. So you have to work efficiently. You probably can't do stuff that's too complicated or too different from what these people already do at their club sides, because, you can't teach it that quickly. It really is a challenge. And it's right. I've had this debate with several people about who say, like, well, the level of international football, like the coaches are all worse than at club level, right? There's somebody I know and I respect a lot who says this all the time. And while it's true that there's more money in the club game, and that you normally either get people who want the experience of being a national team manager and then go back to the club game, and you get a lot of these like FA types and stuff who move up. I don't know if it's just worse or it's just different because they don't have the same opportunity at squad building. And that's something that Tuchel's going to have to do in double quick time. And I suspect that's also why, we touched upon it before, bringing the people in. Jordan Henderson, Dan Burn, we're not talking about building a cycle for the future. We're talking about
It's a
eyes on the
short-term.
prize, 2026. So we're okay with the older players. All of them, including Jordan Henderson?
No. I mean, I would not have taken him. I can understand why you took him for the leadership and etc. I think there's others who could be leaders, and you don't need Jordan Henderson in there. And certainly, if the World Cup was this summer, okay, maybe you could make a case for another 18 months before the World Cup. Like, I don't think he would be at the World Cup, so why are you taking him now? I guess just because you need him for this, especially this first international break, to make things a bit easier and life easier for you if you're Tuchel. But really,
Well, Tuchel has never worked with him, right? So he can look at his CV, he can judge what he sees on television, he can get the feedback that he gets from the guys at Ajax and stuff. It's okay to go and talk to him. I do agree with you in defensive midfield. There probably are better options. Although, come to think of it, I was scratching my head. In that role, who projects better? And who am I forgetting who's better in that role than Jordan Henderson?
I mean, even Adam Wharton, who's not in this squad, is better than Jordan Henderson. Jordan Henderson cannot play for England anymore. He's not good enough. Certainly at the World Cup against Albania and Latvia, of course he can.
Adam Morton is very young and he's been injured
but he's still
for a
better
long
player.
time.
Yeah. So if you want him for the leadership, and he can play 10 minutes, 15 minutes. He cannot start for England in a World Cup in 18 months' time at his age, and considering the guy is not even a starter for Ajax. So you can look at every angle that you want outside of the leadership, especially off the pitch, and what he can do for this squad with a new staff behind it. No problem, not for more than that. So on the pitch, I don't expect him to start on Friday or on Monday, or even less at the World Cup next year.
So this is your way of saying we don't need to talk about Jordan Henderson anymore.
No, we can talk about him.
It's fine. I don't think there's much more to say, but this
Yeah.
is not that interesting a subject to me. What I am interested in is when we look at, England have a really, really deep squad. We said it before the Euros. They have so many players, so many young players. It's a testament, I think, to the work that the academy system's done, that the FA has done over the years. Some of what I consider to be certainties maybe aren't as certain anymore. Like, not that long ago, I would have said, I slammed Southgate for his use of Phil Foden, for example, in the past. I said, why is this guy playing? If you're playing right now, I don't know that Phil Foden would be an automatic choice with the kind of season he's having, but he was player of the year last year. So there are areas. I still feel that kind of wingers, attacking midfielders, England are pretty stacked. Fullbacks, I think they're fine. Goalkeepers, you can't conjure them out of nowhere, so there'll be a big Pickford thing until maybe he decides, I don't know if he likes Pope or whoever else there is. Center backs is an issue, right?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. I think Gahey and Colwill could be very good together, for example.
And Colwill, another one's not having a great season. Like, there's a great player in there, but not
fourth
having a
with
great
Chelsea.
season.
Yeah, I know, but it's not that bad.
This season, Colwill.
The season is not that bad from I think Chelsea's point of view and his point of view too. And I think if he's in the squad, it's because Tuchel likes him as well.
All right. Come on, hey, of course, yeah. Of course, he's in the squad because he rates him. And what I'm projecting forward is Levi Colwill. It's the same thing with Foden, right? These are very, very good players who've shown in the past they can be really, really good, but they're not having good seasons. So what I'm driving at is Tuchel needs to think about, what will they be like? Can I turn them around? What can I better learn about them, about the seasons that they're having? I would throw Ollie Watkins in there too. Ollie Watkins not on the level he was at last year, but there's a player in there. And that's what I want to emphasize is part of his job. The World Cup is coming around in 18 months, right? There's not a lot of time here.
Yeah.
So casting a wide net, understanding the players, understanding what players are going to be back to their levels in 2026. And the other thing is, it's not going to depend on him. It's going to depend on their club managers, right? Because if Colwill continues to have the kind of season he's having this season, and your boy Wesley Fofana proves his fitness and finally moves back into central defense where he belongs, and I don't know, one of Chelsea's other 10, Tosin becomes phenomenal, or Benoit Badiashile, or whoever, and any one of these guys, and something happens with Colwill and maybe moves to left back, whatever, then these are all things for him to think about. And I'm just kind of emphasizing that the challenges that exist when you're dropped in there. It's not like Deschamps, who's had his group for 8 to 10 years, and he adds now and then and sometimes goes back and whatever, right? But you think center back? I mean, the first two names you mentioned were Gay and Colwill.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they start on Friday. I mean, I'm more curious, to be fair, to see what system he plays with. If he plays with a back three, if he plays with a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, and then who fits where. More than, I think this is very early to say, like, he doesn't have many centre backs, he doesn't have many strikers, he doesn't have many wingers, he can't do this, he can't do that. Let's see what he wants to do. He said to the players on Monday, the aim is to win the World Cup. Okay, he's there for that, but that he wants them to press high, he wants them to play with intensity. Which is something that Southgate maybe tried to do, never really managed to do it, apart from occasionally, I guess, in some games. But so I'd be very interesting to see how he approaches that. I like the fact that he didn't want Gibbs White initially, and then thought, actually, I could do with somebody like Gibbs White in this squad, which maybe is a bit of an indication of maybe playing in a 4-3-3 formation and having somebody like Gibbs White or maybe even Bellingham to play the third midfielder, but with a more free role, almost as a 10, but everything. So it'd be interesting to see. Yeah, so I think this is really good to see what he does against Albania in a game where England are going to win comfortably, regardless of who plays, really.
You seem very confident about England's chances against Albania.
Yeah, and Latvia even more the week after.
It is an interesting one because, 4-3-3, there's no obvious role for Cole Palmer, for example, right? Yeah. So these are some of the challenges. And I think it's quite telling that Cole Palmer, despite not being well, as we know, he hasn't actually pulled out of the squad. Or he may have by the time this comes out, but he made it a point of being in touch, of being there, hoping to recover for the second game. This is a really good sign. These are players who say, I want to make a good impression.
Yeah,
absolutely. On Tommy T.
And what Tuchel is very good. We've got a really nice word in French, which you can translate, I guess, which is calinotherapy, which it can translate as like cuddle therapy. And Tuchel is very good at that. He did it when he arrived in Paris. He did it again with his team. He called up every single player that he ended up calling in his squad before to say, hey, I will call you, have a chat, blah, blah, blah. He's very good at that. So the cuddle therapy is like, a bit like you said earlier about, being very close, that kind of man management side of his coaching is really good, I think. It's just not enough, obviously, to win the World Cup. So they will have to be. This is a good start, I guess. The mood in the squad, what they've been doing, the things that he highlighted, emphasized on, etc., etc. But then you will still have to do better. And the way I fear a little bit is, apart from Serbia, and that's a big maybe, they're going to smash every other team in their qualifiers group because they are just much better than Albania and Latvia, home and away. It doesn't matter. So again, they will be the world champions of qualifiers, like they've always been, really. And then what? As soon as they will have a friendly, it will be a big test. As soon as there will be something against a much bigger country, and if it doesn't go their way, we're going to look at it again. And that's what he might find difficult as well, is that those that are not test playing Albania or Latvia, there's not much in it. So he will have to get things like working out pretty quickly, because then he will face much bigger team, and then that could become a bit as a shock if things are not working out for him.
Well, and we know how Southgate handled it. One of the criticisms of Southgate was that against the tougher opponents in the knockouts and stuff, they became very conservative and safety oriented, and they were pretty explicit. Oh, look, that's what Deschamps does, and he wins World Cup. All right, fine. Tuchel can be that. We've seen him win a Champions League, playing some very conservative football.
Yeah, pragmatic.
We've also seen him be very, very attacking in other situations. My concern would be, I think it's good to have a guy who's comfortable doing both and allowing him to decide based on the situation, this is what I need to do. So I think this actually bodes well. I think it's a good appointment.
Exciting. I think it's very exciting.
What he needs to avoid is not having his own private issues get involved in his day job, which is always a challenge here for England managers. And he's going to have to get used to not seeing the players every day. All right, enough England. Here's some quick hits instead.
Let's go, Gab.
We all thought Martin Zubimendi, who has a release clause in his contract, in case you forgot, was pretty much a done deal for Arsenal this summer, because all they had to do was reach a deal with him and then pay the money necessary to release him. But Jules, several outlets in Spain are reporting that Real Madrid are trying to hijack the deal.
I thought they were going to wait for Rodri to leave City in a year time or something like that, to be that number 6 instead of going for Zubimendi. I mean, they can try to go for Zubimendi. I think he was pretty nailed on going to Arsenal. He was very happy to go there and work with Arteta. So that, I don't know, that might change, not to my knowledge. So I didn't see those rumors and those reports in Spain. I mean, he's obviously a very good player. He's younger than Rodri. And he would do a good job, I guess, for Real Madrid like he would do for Arsenal too. So
would it make sense for Real Madrid? And would it make sense for Zubimendi? I mean, he's not allowed to sign anything, right? So he has not signed anything. He wouldn't be breaking any commitment.
No.
Other than, whatever verbal commitment.
Yeah,
I think people would
absolutely.
understand, hey, look, I can move to the biggest club in the world right now and start for Real Madrid straight away, which would he start right for Arsenal? Probably, but it's a different context. I don't think people would necessarily blame him if he did that. And the release cost is about 60 million euros. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's not a bad price.
No, definitely not for somebody like him. Yeah. Bild in Germany report that Manchester United are targeting Borussia Dortmund's Felix Nemscha. Gab, does this make sense to you?
I think they'd be better off chucking some more money in and going for Martin Zubimendi themselves. That might be a tougher sell than Arsenal or Real Madrid. I don't understand this one at all. It is a very strong source from Bild, the guy, Plettenberg is the guy reporting this. He's 24 years old. He's made 24 starts since arriving just over 18 months ago. They paid 30 million euros for him. I do not understand on what possible basis all of a sudden his transfer value would go up from 30 million to 40 million. Based on what? I know he's versatile, can play different positions. I see him as an attacking midfielder type, right? I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
This is generally
Nate,
but this is a position where if there's one situation where United presumably have the guys they need, it's in that 10 thing, right? Amad Diallo's going to come back, and you presume he's playing that position, and then Bruno, that makes more sense than what Bruno's playing now. So yeah, I don't get this at all. I think it's an insane price to pay for what he has offered, and there are many better ways to spend your money. You don't disagree, do you?
No. I mean, they want a ball carrier. They've said they made that quite clear to a lot of agents that they're talking to. But I think that's better than him for sure.
Chelsea women finally lose after 28 games unbeaten, falling to Manchester City 2-0 as Viviane Miedema comes off the bench to turn the game. Jules, your girl, Sonia Bonpastor, is human after all.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, as you said, Gabby, first defeat. So in 29 games this season, they obviously beat City at the weekend in the League Cup final. They will play them again on Sunday in the WSL. And then obviously next Thursday in the second leg of this. It's just half-time. That second goal especially came really, really late because I think you could lose 1-0 at City, and Nick Cushing as an interim coach did a really good job tactically in that game to nullify Chelsea, who maybe didn't have the end product that they usually have. And considering for City, there was no Bunny Show either. So it was not given that City would win this one. But Miedema coming off the bench was great. Two good goals. And for Chelsea, there was definitely something missing.
Yeah, from what I saw, it looked like it was. It looked like a game that had 0-0 written all over it. It looked as if this is how Chelsea had set up, and maybe if we nick something, and I think it was individual quality ultimately that made the difference.
They had loads of the balls, just could not have. The Emperor was not good enough, and the City pressed well at times, and Miedema is just so class. And still in the Women's Champions League, Gabby, Arsenal fall away to Real Madrid 2-0 on Tuesday night. This was a bit of a surprise to you?
Yes, it was, because Arsenal are a powerhouse in the women's game, and Real Madrid are still on their way to hoping to get there, but the gap between Barcelona is still enormous. They do have Linda Caicedo, who is a freak of nature.
Yeah.
And they scored their goal on the counter when the Arsenal captain, Williamson, made a bad mistake. I know they complained about the pitch, it was a funny bounce, whatever.
It was really bad pitch now.
But she runs through and scores, and then Natalia Castillo, scoring from the edge of the box. I think those were pretty much Real Madrid's only 2 shots on goal. Arsenal had the upper hand the rest of the way. Blackstenius getting involved several times. If I'm Arsenal, I feel okay about the return leg. And I feel like I was a little bit unlucky. Jules, we're not done because we have more quick hits.
Yes.
And in fact, more transfer stuff. Chelsea have reportedly locked up Giovanni Kenda and Dario Sugo from Sporting for a combined deal worth more than 70 million euros. Jules, what should they expect?
Well, for Kwanda, we know he's one of the most promising players of his generation. He's only 17, plays a winger or a wing back if you want, but very attacking wing back. Esugo is a defensive midfielder that I guess would come as a cover of Caicedo. I mean, I don't know. For Kwanda, I think it's loads of clubs were looking at him. It makes sense.
It's just a lot of money for a guy who does not have.
But he has huge potential, though.
Right,
so.
There's just not a big body of work to judge him on. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, no, you're right. Although he's been a starter now for the whole season. But yeah, for Esugo, he's been on loan. Chelsea also have Andre Santos on loan at Strasbourg, who's one of the best midfielders in Ligue 1 this season. I don't know why you go and spend 35 million on Esugo when you've got Andre Santos belongs to you, who I expect will come back next season. But
maybe Esugo can go to replace Andre Santos at Strasbourg.
Yeah, although I was told that he would be in the Chelsea squad for next season, so maybe this could change. But I'm sure Chelsea know how great Andre Santos has been playing lately.
The weird one for me, Esugo has just turned 20, I think last week actually. And he's been at Las Palmas on loan, so I don't know what the exact breakdown in fees is, but I'm assuming Esugo is going to be about 30 million. It just seems a little odd to me. Playing defensive midfield for Las Palmas is going to be very different than doing it at Chelsea. We're going to have much more of the ball.
Yeah.
I don't know, but who are we to question?
The CONCACAF Nations League semi-finals take place in Los Angeles with Canada facing Mexico and then the US taking on Panama. Gab, some people think this might end up looking like what happened in hockey last month, and Mauricio Pochettino talked about it.
Yeah, so what happened was they had this, it was like the Four Nations face-off.
Like a mini tournament,
It's like a mini tournament with players from the different countries, and basically when Canada played the US, in light of recent news events, suggestions that Canada might become the 51st state and whatnot. It became very political with the U.S. anthem being booed and whatever.
Very physical as well.
And extremely physical. A lot of fighting. Now, this is obviously here. You couldn't have set this up any better, right? Because they're playing Panama, and obviously there's been talk about the U.S. retaking the Panama Canal. And then they're going to play the winner of Mexico and Canada. They're neighbors. Both of whom they're in a tariff situation with. And of course, there's the 51st state option for Canada. Look, Pochettino's asked about it. And unlike other national team coaches,
Jesse Marsh,
he says,
offensive.
I think it's a big mistake if we talk about politics, because I think people aren't waiting for us to talk in this way. And Poch, you said the right thing. But the reality is, and nobody expects you to take a stand on this because you're from Argentina.
Yeah.
Right? But I just hope it doesn't turn ugly. They're playing in LA, where obviously there's an enormous Mexican population.
Yep.
There's probably a lot of Canadians there too.
Yeah.
And a lot of Panamanians there as well. So we'll see how things turn out. Barcelona unleashed a can of whoop ass on Wolfsburg, cruising to a 4-1 away victory in their women's UCL quarterfinal, Jules.
Yeah, there was no game, no match. I mean, if you can watch this Barca team in the league, and they will play Real Madrid, I think, this weekend in the league or in the Champions League. They're just so good to watch. It's great, even without Walsh, for example, who left to go to Chelsea. They're still fantastic. Their midfield is great, and they were outstanding. And Wolfsburg are not a bad team, but they could have won easily 6
I think it's was it the fourth goal? Was it Salma who scored the one where she curls it from the corner of the box? I mean, and she curls it with power as well. She strikes the ball so well.
She's very, very good. So they are, again, the massive favorite to retain the title. And it's not just Leo Messi, who's out of the Argentina squad in the qualifiers against Brazil and Uruguay in this international break. Gabi, Lautaro Martinez also has flown home.
Yes, future Ballon d'Or and quadruple winner Lautaro Martinez, no less. Yeah. And people will know what I'm referencing. It's a shame because we want to see the best players out there in their biggest rivalry. And obviously, Argentina, Uruguay, and Argentina, Brazil are the cream of CONMEBOL qualifying. On the other hand, is this going to have a material impact on Argentina? No, because they will qualify anyway.
Of course.
Brazil and Uruguay, it is a little bit tighter. So I think they would welcome this just to get some of the pressure off if it makes Argentina weaker. I'm not sure it will, because Argentina have quite a bit of depth there. Lyon cruised past Bayern 2-0 in their Women's Champions League quarterfinal first leg, also away from home, Jules. and also pretty one-sided.
Yeah, although Bayern tried in the first half, to be fair, and at times created a bit of danger, which Lyon have rarely been under that kind of pressure so far this season. But going forward, they're just so good. They've got so much pace, really, with Chawinga especially, I think, and Dumornay. Both of them were outstanding, more than Diani, who's the third attacker in that team. But Dumornay and Chawinga are so young, so good, really, so quick. It's unreal. And I think with them, Lyon can go really far and cause trouble to Barcelona because they could meet. They're in different side of the draw. So the winner of this Bayern-Lyon team will face the winner of Chelsea-City, I think. So then Barcelona will be probably waiting in the final, and yeah, that could be very, very good for this Lyon team.
They also missed a penalty in this one, where like a goalkeeper saved it. I'm on paper. You know more about women's football than I do. It feels like the Lyon and Barcelona are pretty much done and dusted. But the other game, Arsenal, Real Madrid, and City, Chelsea, obviously very much in the balance.
Yeah, very much so. Gab, this has been going on for a while, but can you tell us why Fabio Capello has been calling Pep Guardiola arrogant and saying that he ruined football? That's pretty strong.
It's pretty strong when taken entirely out of context by outlets who should know better, like ones in this country, who I mean, it's still pretty strong, and I think Fabio Capello's wrong. But basically, Fabio Capello is a pundit on Sky Italia, does the Champions League. I think he's a really good pundit. I often disagree with him. It's interesting because what he's saying here, I want to get your take on it. So the arrogant thing comes from the fact that he hates it when this is the classic Pep overthinking thing, right? Before a big game, before a big final, Pep makes some surprise move. We've seen it in the past, Aguero on the bench, Laporte at left back. There's a long history of this. And it blows up in his face, and he goes out. And he says he does it because he wants to show that his tactics have won the game, right? To make it about him. I think it's unfair. I think it's stupid. I don't think it reflects Pep. But it's no different than the accusations that get leveled against him
all the time.
by so many other people.
Yeah.
The ruined football thing, I think, is also stupid and wrong. It's based on the idea that because, and look, he gives Pep a lot of credit. I mean, he comes out and says it, right? There's like, he says, in my lifetime, he saes there's three people who have changed football with their innovations, right? And it's the total football from Holland in the early 70s. It's Arrigo Sacchi's Milan, and the pressing in the zone. And it's what Pep brought, right? But he says this whole playing out from the back stuff, people try to copy him. They have worse players and they can't do it. And the game turns boring. I think this is complete nonsense.
Well, it's certainly not Guardiola's fault if other people try to copy him.
Right, but
so you can't blame him for that.
It's a way of playing. And also, you don't need to have superstar defenders to play out from the back. You just need people who know to play the percentages and whatever else. If you don't like it, that's fine. I don't find it boring when people play out from the back because it often leads to chances, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The Times report that Arsenal will soon open talks with Bukayo Saka, William Saliba, and Gabriel, all of whom have contracts to expire in 2027. Jules considering that presumably they'll need new deals for Miles Lewis-Skelly and Ethan Nwaneri too, since they're first teamers now. This could get expensive. Any reason for Gooners to worry?
No, I don't think so. This is the normal process, really. They've got Andrea Berta coming as a new sporting director, obviously, who will look after that. I think those players want to stay. Yeah, it will be expensive, but you also lose some players. You will sell some players, so there will be.
You're saving a lot of money on Thomas Partey and Jorginho, who I don't think will be back.
Well, definitely not. They won't be back. I can tell you that now. So so all in all, I think it will balance up, but it's obviously very important if you can keep those players.
And the other thing, which I think is worth noting too, is these contracts expire in 2027. They made it a point about Arsenal have this policy. You know, when we do sort of our keep or dump series, we always emphasize it. They don't want to have players enter the final 2 years of their contract in general. Certainly not younger players. If they can't get it done by the start of the new season, it's not the end of the world.
No.
But certainly they don't want to have this drag over, like the way, for example, has happened with Liverpool this year.
Yeah, exactly. Manchester United season ticket prices will rise by 5% next season, and the club supporters trust said it's hard to stomach. Gab, do you have any sympathy?
I do. I always have sympathy for the fans, Jules. But you know what? 5% after they were frozen for 11 years before that. I mean, stuff happens. Barcelona will be staying in Montjuic until the end of the season as works in the Camp Nou, surprise, are taking longer than expected. Jules, is this a big deal?
Well, yeah, because it's not their home. I don't think they feel great there. The fans don't feel comfortable there. So it would have been great for the Camp Nou refurbishment to be on time. It's not on time, so they'll have to...
It's better to get it right and get it safe.
Yeah, true. And sticking with Barcelona, La Liga have decided that their game against Osasuna, which was postponed after the sudden death of their team doctor, remember, will be played on March 27th. Both teams are unhappy with this. Why?
So the rules say that you do it on the next available date. And that is, strictly speaking, the next available date. The problem is March 27th is a Thursday. Yeah. It's actually next Thursday. Yeah, the players will be back from international break, but some of them will only have been back the day before. If both teams aren't happy with this, I don't know. Why don't they wait? Why don't they wait and see if the date frees up? I guess they do it for competitive balance in La Liga, or maybe to keep Real Madrid happy. I don't know.
The Footbiz newsletter reports that the Glazers aren't expected to contribute to the £2 billion cost of Manchester United's new stadium, Gabby. So who's going to pay for it?
Yeah, are you surprised that they're not?
No, I mean, why would they?
So not directly anyway. So basically, according to Footbiz, we're generally very well sourced. They're going to raise $1.2 billion of the cost by loans and bonds. So now putting more debt onto the club, essentially.
Of course, yeah.
Although I think when it's for a stadium, it's virtuous debt. And when it's to make sure that the Glazers don't tie up capital like they did with the leverage buyout, it's not so good. The other $800 million will be fresh equity. Now, this means that it's either going to be Ratcliffe putting in money, and presumably it'll increase his equity stake in the club. Otherwise, why else is he going to do this? Or new investors, which the Glazers would need to greenlight.
Surely they won't agree to that, no?
It depends how much they put in, right? I think it was mentioned that Ratcliffe, by the way, the Manchester United shares on the New York Stock Exchange, last week they were down to about $13, $14, and Ratcliffe paid more than $30 for his shares. So now there's different things because he has voting shares and whatnot, but still, it seems like a very heavy lift in terms of adding debt, and Ratcliffe does not seem to be super liquid right now, but we'll see. Mauricio Pochettino is very bullish about the prospect of the U.S. becoming a world power in football, Jules.
Yeah.
He says, this is a quote, "I think we can dominate," and this is funny because apparently he did a bunch of interviews with the English media, and he went out of his way to say soccer, right?
Yes.
Many times over. Anyway, he says, "I think we can dominate soccer maybe in 10 or 15 years' time, or maybe less, maybe 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. The potential is massive." And then he says, "In 5 or 10 years, for sure, we can be number one in the world." I love the optimism.
Yeah, me too. I think there is potential, of course. There is clearly talent right now with this current squad, but also in the younger teams. I think there's still a lot of work to do with grassroots football in the US and how to structure it and restructure it to get access to more children play football, men and women, by the way, or girls and boys, not just in the men's side, to play and to bring more talent, more quality towards the national team. I mean, 5 years, that means they could win they would have to win the 2030 World Cup to be the best team in the world, right? The number one in the world, like he says.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, no offense to the United States, I love you guys. I just don't think you'll be ready to win the 2030 World Cup.
I think you need to look at what's happening at U20 level, U17 level. Certainly, it feels to me that in terms of people who have actual superstar quality, who could start for, one of the 8 or 10 teams that we always talk about, right? Mm-hmm. Christian Pulisic arguably already does. Okay, that's fine. And then there's a lot of Weston McKennie, Anthony Robinson guys are doing very well. Tyler Adams when fit. But it does seem that I'm not forgetting somebody, right?
No.
Could you see Anthony Robinson or Tyler Adams or Weston McKennie starting for Liverpool or Real Madrid or Bayern? I don't know. We're not quite there yet.
No, but McKennie at Juventus is a good start. I mean, Joe Reyna is probably the most talented, or with Pulisic.
And he's done a lot in the last 2 years.
No, but of course. So we'll have to wait and see. I think he probably means collectively there's great potential too, maybe more than just individually, which is also true. But there's a lot of work and a lot of improvement to do.
We got to see what the kid from Philadelphia who signed for Manchester City does. whose
Oh, he
name I
scored
can
a
never
great
remember.
Cavan Sullivan. He scored a great free kick the other day in MLS, by the way.
There you go.
Yeah, so he could be the one, really. But that it will be more than 5 years though, because he's only 15. So
Well, he'll be 20. And
yeah, but I'm not sure he'll be.
Lamine
still ready
Yamal
at-
is pretty good at 17,
yeah,
right?
true. Okay,
There you
Cavan
go.
Sullivan is not Lamine Yamal.
Puma will be the official provider of Premier League footballs from next season. Jules, you wanted to talk about this on Monday. I said, no, let's save it for Thursday.
Yeah.
Arteta, not a big fan of the Puma footballs.
Not
but
a big fan. He's not the only one, by the way. I think Pep Guardiola was not too happy either with the ball from the League Cup, but also from the FA Cup. Very different to the Nike ball that we've had for the last 20 odd years or something like that. No more Nike footballs. It will be Puma footballs. I saw the one for the League Cup final on Sunday. It looked okay, but all footballs
Did
are
you do
different.
keepy uppies with it?
I didn't do keepy uppies with it, but all footballs are different. We said that, and I'm sure they will get it right for the start of the season.
I presume, correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm not an expert in football manufacturing because I care less about it. But the Premier League presumably have a panel of nerds
Surely.
composed of ex-players and
Yes.
coaches and whatever. They send them different balls. They try them out. I like this. I like that. Make this heavier. Make this lighter. And then they produce the ball, right?
Yeah. Because at the League Cup, some of the boys were saying that it felt like a beach ball, but you know the one that you blow and it gets
The
big.
inflatable ones,
Those ones. So I hope not.
Yeah, and I'm also imagining Puma, if you're producing a football for the League Cup, with all due respect, it's still the League Cup, right?
Yeah.
It's fewer matches, less visibility, just less important, smaller contract. If you're promoting it for 380 Premier League matches a year,
Yeah, absolutely.
you want to get it right.
Yeah. Gazzetta dello Sport report that Milan will begin their casting call next week, and there is a new candidate for director of football.
Yeah, so, well, first of all, Milan have made it a point, and I think rightly so. Okay, if we are going to have a director of football, let's do it right.
Yeah.
Let's maybe revisit who's in charge, and they don't actually say, hey, maybe Zlatan, you're the boss, but maybe the director of football will be the boss.
Yeah.
Maybe Geoffrey Moncada can go back to doing what he does best, which is scouting.
Yeah.
So, as I told you before, there was the candidates who initially met with Zlatan and Jerry. And now they're having a proper casting call. So the new guy is a guy named Kim Falkenberg, who was a scout at Bayer Leverkusen, who then was quickly promoted.
Yeah.
He seems to be the new thing. Then there's Marcus Kroesche, who's of course from Eintracht Frankfurt. Thiago Scuro from
Monaco.
From Monaco. I think it's not being taken very seriously by some people. Me. Then there's Iglitare, who did a good job at Lazio for many years. And then there's Fabio Paratici, who of course
Still suspended.
but the suspension will be ending.
Yeah.
And he's still here in London, by the way. And of course, he worked at Spurs, suspended for stuff that happened while it was Juventus. The thinking is that if it's Fabio Paratici, he's going to try to sneak Max Allegri in through the door with him. Whatever you think about Allegri, a lot of people think that he would be a good option. Of course, he won a title with Milan many moons ago. Max Allegri, not a fan. Or Zlatan Ibrahimovic, not a fan of Max Allegri. I think if Allegri rocks up, I think Ibra might go do something else within the Redbird group, since he's a senior advisor or whatever he does there. It's an interesting one. They're going through the motions. They have to get this right, I think, before they appoint the new coach. It's time! It's time! It's Texter time! Jules, John Texter and his Eagle football are looking to land in Portugal as ever. Now, you remember a few years ago, he tried to buy a stake in Benfica. Why?
Yeah.
Because Benfica are the Eagles, right?
Exactly.
Like Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
No, it's time. It's a different kind of bird, a different kind of club.
Well, yeah, because they're looking at buying Casapia, who are now in the top flight. They were not for many years, but they're in top flight and doing okay. They're nicknamed the Geese.
It's a different bird,
but still, it would still be okay within the Eagles group. Obviously, they've tried even between Benfica and Casapia to try to get other Portuguese club that had nothing to do with birds and their nicknames or their names was nothing to do with birds.
It's disappointing, right? Because they're really, you strayed from it. Molenbeek, they should have added a bird to each of their clubs, right? Like Molenbeek, I don't know. Molenbeek could have been the Ducks, right? That sounds appropriately Belgian.
Yeah.
Leon could have been the Storks, right?
True.
Botafogo, I don't know. There's got to be some.
Is there some like Brazilian birds that we
Some
can find?
seagulls or
Yeah,
something?
maybe.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
maybe.
At least keep it avian, right?
Yeah.
Which they'd be doing with Casapia.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm as you know, I'm not the biggest fan of third-party ownership clubs and etc. etc. I'm not really sure what's the motivation there to go and get Casapia, but
The main thing with Casapia is because I know people who are involved with Casapia now after it was taken over because
Yeah.
obviously it was I think it was part of Bob Platik's group. This is a tiny club, like literally
Very
they're like
small.
based within. I think they're like historically they're like the 6th or 7th biggest club in Lisbon
Yeah.
alone. They're like a mile from the Estádio da Luz or Benfica. They don't really have any fans, but they've done really, really well. I don't think it's a commercially viable club, but it is commercially viable if you use it as a place to park players.
yeah,
Maybe players from Brazil, maybe players from Botafogo, right? Who you say, hey, look, you want to be in Europe? Look, they speak Portuguese just like they do in Rio.
I know, but you go from Botafogo, Copa Libertadores winner, to Casapia still.
Yeah, I think that's
It's a hard sell. Still.
that's the challenge.
Yeah. The United Soccer League, the USL in the US, will introduce promotion and relegation from 2028, Gabi, pending authorization from the US Soccer Federation. Is this a threat to MLS, do you think? Certainly very different.
It's very different now. The authorization isn't to have promotion relegation, but they have 2 leagues now. They want to add another league, which would be its kind of top league.
Yeah.
And they would want what they call Division 1 status for that league, where you have to satisfy certain requirements. And obviously that would mean that there would be 2 men's leagues that have what they call Division 1 status. And I think that could obviously be potentially a stumbling block, which is what the USSF says. I mean, USSF is supposed to be impartial in this. It's a different model. I think it's gaining a lot of steam. The USL is all built on sustainability. And so far, they've proven to be sustainable. And what I really, really like about the USL model is there's a lot of misconceptions about what it takes for sports to succeed in the US. And one of them is that people only want the biggest and the best. And, you have to have a franchise model, no relegation, and big, shiny stadiums and whatever else. And obviously, that's the road that, that's what the NFL is. That's the road that MLS has gone down. But I would argue that that's not true, that you can have successful sports in smaller cities and smaller venues. Because the single biggest sports in the U.S., just by people paying to go watch them, are college football, college basketball, with women, college volleyball. And those are all in small towns. Those are small towns, small venues that are deeply rooted. So the model of having your local small town or your local mid-sized town, even because yes, it's a huge country, competing and having local pride. This already exists. It's part of the U.S. DNA. It's just that it happens with college sports. So I see no reason why this model can't work. Will it compete with MLS? We'll see. I think MLS can use some competition because a lot of things are looking, in some ways, very good. In other ways, pretty stale. Jules, we know it's been a tough year for DAZN in France in terms of getting subscribers to watch Ligue 1. This tie-up with the McDonald's meal deal sounds as if they're just giving things away.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, to be fair. So just for a month, you can get a free subscription to watch DAZN, where you've got some Ligue 1, some basketball, a few other things as well there. So worth 35 euros. So you don't pay that 35 euros, but you buy a meal, like a big meal, the biggest meal at McDonald's. I don't know. I'm not too familiar with the McDonald's things, but you get a big meal and then you get that monthly subscription for free.
And I think that the meal deal, it's about 13 euros and
or
90
14,
cents.
something like that, yeah. So it's only a limited amount. So I think the first 100,000 people would get it, not more than that. And I think it's for DAZN to try to get more subscribers, for people to see their product. And if they like it, then they buy a normal subscription, not for free, or not like, I don't know, half price or whatever, or giving away. So it's one of the things they came up with, trying to get more subscribers to watch Ligue 1, amongst other things, on DAZN.
Yeah, this is no different than when people have like, oh, you can watch our premium product this weekend for free. This is really no different than that.
Like that.
It's just that because it's McDonald's, which was used to sponsor the league, right?
No, Ivanovic still does. Yeah.
Oh, they still do.
Yeah.
Again, nothing against McDonald's. I know it's very popular. It's just, and I know it's very popular in France. Weirdly, I don't know how you can sort of have one of the best cuisines in the world, and at the same time love McDonald's so much.
Yeah, you're right.
I think McDonald's is more popular in France than it is in any other European country.
Yeah,
which blows my
it's the
mind.
second biggest market after the US. Yeah, so.
Remember Leicester midfielder and former England under-21 international Hamza Chowdhury?
Yeah.
I don't, because I don't watch the championship, and apparently he's on loan at Sheffield United.
He
And that's
is
where he
indeed,
is.
since
I
January.
wondered. I thought he'd retired, but he didn't. Yes, I'm kidding. He's 27. Anyway, he's opted to play for the country of origin of his mother, Bangladesh. And by the way, it's not just that it's his mother's country of origin. Like, he still has strong ties. He visited Bangladesh every year as a kid and so on. And he's getting quite the reaction.
Yeah, it was literally a hero's welcome when when his plane landed in Bangladesh. Like thousands of people waiting for him at the airport and following his car to the hotel. It's amazing. He had, I think, 7 caps for England and 21. Then obviously played for Leicester, now on loan at Sheffield United, like you say, Gabby. And this is a massive deal for Bangladesh, clearly. And he seems very happy to have decided that. It took him clearly a few years, so he thought about it strongly before accepting the Bangladesh offer to play for them. I think they face India maybe. And
yes, they're playing India soon.
So let's see how that goes. But it's great. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's getting back in the England team anytime soon.
No, clearly not.
But yeah, good for. I think we're seeing more and more of this. Obviously, we've seen it with a bunch of Anglo-Nigerian players. And we saw it with Gigi Buffon's son as well.
Exactly.
Right? So,
and Désiré Doué, who's been called up for France, his brother obviously chose to play for Ivory Coast.
Right.
So they might play against each other one day. And sometimes you choose one side of your heritage, sometimes you choose the other side.
I'm just waiting for Ryan Cherky to play
Of
for
course,
Italy. I'm
yeah,
shocked that they didn't call him up this time.
Yeah, you can watch him play for France on the 21.
Well, he hasn't. He hasn't played yet. So
No, tomorrow, Friday
Well,
night.
until he plays for the real French team. So come
absolutely.
to us, Ryan.
Yeah,
we
I'm
love
sure.
you.
He's
You
just
go straight in
waiting.
the team.
He's just waiting for the call. It's not just footballers, by the way, heading to Saudi Arabia, Gabby. Crystal Palace are losing their director of football, Dougie Friedman.
So Dougie Friedman fascinates me because Crystal Palace, I think, have been pretty shrewd with many of their signings.
He's been great.
I've met people who think that he's responsible for all this and he's a genius. And I've met other people who really don't like him. I mean, he divides opinion like few other people, right? Some people say he's just the tip of an iceberg of very smart people.
True.
It's strange to me, A, that he's leaving Crystal Palace because he and Steve Parish, of course, very, very close.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, the club isn't getting sold anytime soon. This is not something Textor related. I'm surprised John Textor hasn't tried to poach him. But I'm surprised where he's going. He's going to the club called El Diriyah, who are in the 2nd division in Saudi.
Yeah.
It's a very, very odd situation. I don't even know how much latitude you're going to have in Saudi Arabia to bring in players, to do deals. Obviously, there's a lot of money in Saudi Arabia, but this is not one of the PIF clubs.
No, definitely.
So I think there's more to the story than meets the eye.
Yeah.
CONMEBOL president Alejandro Dominguez has had to apologize for some recent comments about Brazil. What's he done now, Jules?
Yeah, he said, I mean, you might know more than me, but he basically said that the Copa Libertadores without Brazilian clubs would be like Tarzan without Cheetah. And I guess the comparison and the metaphor there.
The Cheetah, so for those who don't know, like I haven't watched Tarzan in any way. It was in black and white when I was a child. So clearly, this is a very old school comparison.
To start with, yeah.
Cheetah is Tarzan's friend who's a monkey.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. It's not Cheetah the animal.
It's not the animal Cheetah.
No.
It's not Jane, who's actually kind of hot, right? Tarzan and Jane.
Exactly.
No,
so then if you're Brazilian, obviously you were the Cheetah and the Copa Libertadores.
Right. So we're
Tarzan.
the monkeys, right?
Yeah, you're the monkeys. So that didn't go down well at all.
We're talking about Brazilian football, by the way.
Yeah,
Can I just tell you, Alejandro, mira, if anything, Brazil is Tarzan and you are Cheetah. Yeah, just to be clear.
Well, very much so in this. He had to apologize because obviously there was a lot of people offended by his comments, and rightly so in Brazil and in the rest of South America. It's just like, you're the president of the CONMEBOL. Surely think before you talk. Surely. I mean, I don't even know what else to say to you.
Apparently it's an expression in Paraguay.
I don't know. I've never heard it before. But even if it was, just don't say it.
I don't know. Just say it's like...
This is not good.
Why don't you just say it's Robin without Batman?
Yeah. Okay.
Or it's Andrew Ridgeley without George Michael.
You can say that too. Gab, MLS made history with a global streaming deal with Apple TV. Obviously, we remember that. But according to reports, it's not going so well.
Yeah, so Puck reporting that MLS, the MLS deal in 2024, they had about half the number of new or returning subscribers as 2023, when obviously they got the big uplift when Messi came. Messi, by the way, still there.
Yeah, still there.
They've not been very public with the numbers. I don't know if they've disputed these numbers. It's interesting because the reason this is relevant beyond Apple TV and MLS is that there's some people like your friend Todd Bowley who came out and said, well, that they should do a global streaming deal. And obviously it looks like there's a global streaming deal for the World Cup. The Club World Cup, obviously with DAZN, although that's kind of TBD because they've sub-licensed things left, right, and center.
Like TNT, for example, we show it in the US.
So we'll see how that's actually going to go. But if the numbers are really bad from Apple TV's perspective, because it's such a giant company and it's not such a big deal, it doesn't matter that much. But I do wonder at some point these numbers have to come out. And the fact that you've made it global, like I generally wonder, I have Apple TV here.
Yeah.
I don't watch MLS games. I'm not going to get an extra subscription to watch them here because it doesn't necessarily have, all the additional stuff that I expect. It's just like, oh, boom, here's a game, right? Without context and so on. So it's a big gamble. It's a long deal. Maybe it'll change over time, but not great for the model right now. Joel Sergio Ramos, of course, is going great at 38. And I just said that because it rhymes, not because it's actually true. He's in Mexico at Monterrey. We'll see him at the Club World Cup. I took him all of 5 games to do one of the things he does best.
That's right, Gabby. He got sent off. Hey, which is obviously not unusual because this is the 30th red card of his long and illustrious career, of course.
I think it's the second highest amount in history.
What, is Pep the first one?
No, there's somebody else. I did some obscure defensive midfielder,
right.
probably from Uruguay.
Yeah, maybe, Sergio Ramos, who, to be fair, I've watched a few of the games before where I thought he could have easily had a red card too, but it happened in this one. I mean, even in this game, he could have been sent off before he got actually sent off in that red card. He seems still very happy there, and Monterrey are not doing badly since he arrived either, so he just will have to sit this one out. Arda Karzali, who are 5th in the Bulgarian top flight, held a minute of silence, Gabi, before the game with Levski Sofia, to pay tribute to the passing of former player Petko Ganchev. There was just one little problem.
Yeah, it's a very minor problem, which is that Petko Ganchev is not actually dead.
Oh.
It was a great story. He talked about how he was driving home because he watches every Arda Karzali game. And all of a sudden his phone starts ringing and he says, and it's people calling me to find out if I was dead. And I'm like, first of all, this is the part of the story I don't really buy because, okay, if somebody dies, you don't call their cell phone because they're not going to answer.
You just want to check.
Yeah.
Are you dead or?
No, but it was like his family members and his wife. I think it was his wife or relatives saying like, hey, I just saw you a couple hours ago. That was quick, right? So yeah, they apologized.
What happened? They got the wrong info?
It's not clear how it happened. I hope it wasn't somebody playing a joke.
Yeah,
it's a terrible
that's not
taste.
nice.
But Petko, we're glad you're alive and well. And they got a draw against Levski.
Oh, that's good.
Might we see them in Europe next year? Who knows?
Yeah.
If they do, I make it a point. I want the company to send me to an Arda game in Europe next year.
Yeah. With Petko. I mean,
and hopefully Petko will be there.
Exactly.
We should invite him at our guest.
Exactly.
Jules, this brings us to an end of our international break Gab and Jules show. Don't worry. We'll have some international men's football to talk about on the next one. Until then, love the game. Love your neighbor. Love yourself.